And we're live.
Well, hello, lurkers and bots. It is 2020-10-28. This is show number 30 of Lucid Indifference. That's lucidindifference.com. Check out our website and look at our clips and see if you like what we've got. And if you do, check out our other shows. We've got last show, number 29, going up live. I think it's tomorrow, isn't it, Minion? Or are you still queuing a whole lot of stuff?
All of it's cute, but I guess we'll just have it to Wednesday on Friday.
Yeah, sometimes I will give you more clips than you know what to do with. And it's fine if you want to put more than one up during a day. And my intention is to have clips going up even like right now, even today. So queued for like literally this minute. And that might be a prompt. So for example, if somebody's subscribing and they have notifications or they visit or they remember, like God forbid somebody actually remembers a schedule these days, and then that if that the channel itself, the YouTube channel itself, will send notifications via the clip, and that will jog people's memory to come and see the actual live show on the days that we are live. And speaking of notifications, you've got a Twitter that has been set up. Congratulations. It is ugly and horrible and default, but it's there. But it's there. So this is a good start.
It's plain default. I don't see how that's ugly and horrible. It's default.
Well, their default is pretty incompetent. It's pretty ugly. So we haven't decided on things like a logo or colors even. So there's stuff to be done. But even then, there are things like tweeting out when we're about to go live, and maybe if there's stuff that's being talked about during a show, you can use Twitter as a way of communicating some of that stuff. I know other podcasts, when they're live, they don't necessarily lean on the platform that they're using. So, for example, we happen to be on Twitch, which is fine. We can encourage people to come on Twitch. But some people will be here but won't be logged in. They don't want to make an account, for example. So some places, what they do is they have people send them messages via Twitter, or they have a common hashtag for people to kind of talk with one another, and just to encourage using the social media that people already use in the way that they already use them, as opposed to. So that's one of the things to do. That's one of the things to consider. The other is checking out restream.io, I believe it is, and then do multi-streaming or multicasting out to start with just YouTube and Twitch. And it using these different platforms is perfectly safe since we do local recording. We don't have to. One of the risks is if you use other people's services, they can cut you off. So, for example, if for some reason some car drives down the street and it's playing some copyrighted song, we can have our stream terminated or something weird like that. We're going to enter into that world, I'm sure. We have extra sensitive AI. And but we record things locally. So it's perfectly safe for us to stream on multiple platforms and never have to worry about who archives what and what rules are where and this kind of weird stuff. I mean, we're not particularly edgy. Um, at any rate, that's the kind of administrivia for segment 3. Let's see, what things do I have to talk about today? Maybe I'll talk a little bit about this ridiculous portrait mode monitor that I have going. I'm going to have to rearrange my room, and due to the nature of how things have been mounted, I may not have the combination of a nearby wall for a wall mount or desk space for a desk mounted for a like a regular, like the regular monitor stand stuff. I hate those. I don't want to use one ever again. And I may not even have the right kind of space for desk clamped monitor arms. So I can't have obviously you can't have 6. I've got 4 screen, technically 5 screens, maybe a 6th. I think I lost one, but only in my life can you actually lose a monitor. And so obviously I can't use, actually I can use 4 at the same time probably, but I just can't fit all of them. I can't arrange all of them. Why? Why am I going to? Okay, other things I want to talk about. I'll probably talk a little bit more about that mask, about me almost dying and this kind of stuff. I did actually talk to a doctor the day after last show. So I have some stuff on that. I'll talk about the Frisian learning stuff that I haven't talked about in a very long time. So that will be boring because it's a pretty short complaint. Halloween is coming up and we've got pumpkins for the first time in this household. So I'm pretty sure. And I don't know how to carve them or anything, but we're going to figure out what we're going to do with that. We'll figure something out.
What?
Well, we
Carving
have I've never done it. I don't think I've ever done it.
Put
Maybe
knife in object. Cut. Either A, take a pattern, stick pattern on pumpkin, put knife in hole, or just freehand and do whatever you can get creatively do.
Well, okay, so I've never see not having done that, I really don't understand.
Put knife in objects.
Well, okay, I've done that before, so you've got the scars for that. But I've never actually. I certainly have no artistic talent for carving because I've never even tried it. But I'm sure getting a pattern is doable. We'll have to. We've got a couple of printers hanging around somewhere. But I'm just assigning a secondary minion to do some cutting. Maybe there's some creativity there. Who knows? Who knows?
And then maybe either candle or an LED that, or an LED.
Yeah. The pumpkins were picked up. Again, this is a different minion, so minions aren't very bright. He forgot candles. So we might have tea lights, but I know I've got a couple of big, like, ritual candles that I can probably use. They're probably a little bit big, but they're big pumpkins.
Just go to the dollar store and grab a few small candles. Will be fine as well.
The little tea lights, they probably only last a couple hours a piece, but that's going to be fine, right? You're going to maybe swap them out a couple times. So I've got no
Once or
problems.
twice.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. I mean, it's only the 28th today, so we got a little bit of time. We should definitely talk about Cyberpunk for sure, because it was delayed again, and we should probably complain for as long as we can, because blow off some steam, I suppose. I will talk a little bit more about the administrivia. I may as well start talking in order to hype myself for the new equipment and maybe some of the new room arrangement I'm attempting. I have no idea what I'm doing, right? But you listen to experts and I try to take the advice that they give you, and hopefully things work out. And this entire thing, this entire shebang from beginning to end has been an experiment. And I know that I'm doing things wrong, and Minion is wrong. so things are going to be like quarter-assed and stuff like this. But kind of documenting it as we go is a great way of both. I don't want to hide from the shame of doing things wrong or listening to bad advice or not following good advice correctly. And that learning experience, conveying it properly to other people, is also a way of, I guess, whipping myself in some sense and making sure I do better, as opposed to just kind of ignoring the flaws and pretending like they were never there and all this kind of stuff. That's never a good idea. So, I mean, do you want to talk about Cyberpunk right now, since you're kind of chatty?
I don't think it matters since it'll come up at some point.
Well, it could come up now if we choose. That's the nature of conversation. Okay,
No.
so no. Okay, so I'm going to start with my screen. Man, I had blinding headaches yesterday, and it is so bad. I normally don't, but I took some sort of headache medication or other, and I had a very specific. I know myself very well, and I will get certain kinds of pains. My left eye will hurt me, and like left temple kind of thing. It's a very predictable sort of headache. And I just checked just before the show just to see, like, I wonder if this screen decided to reset itself and try to be smart, because I intuited that it had been changing brightness occasionally, and it's one of these quote unquote smart monitors. It's got a little light sensor underneath it, and it actually makes the bezel look incredibly dumb because it pokes out, and it's bad. I'm glad they discontinued selling this just because it's not It's not actually that smart. It's supposed to have all this intelligence built in, but it was just like intelligently giving me a headache. I went and fiddled, and yeah, it reset, and it was trying to be bright, literally and figuratively. And so I turned off all of its intelligence, and it's really dim now. But it's one of these, like, it's dimmer than my main screen, and maybe my main screen isn't right. Like, we were fiddling with power, right? So maybe the power being off reset the screens or something. I'll tinker. And maybe it's just getting later in the year. We've got less daylight, this kind of stuff. Maybe my eyes are just kind of getting angry at me because of lighting conditions changing and all this kind of stuff. Who knows? And the other thing, my computer decided to yell at me and be all angry and dumb, and the keyboard wasn't working right, and the mouse was sticking, and like it just suddenly all happened at the same time, and I raged and just reboot. And the first thing I noticed is the portrait mode monitor is default, but it's default and it's still in landscape while it's booting up. So everything is sideways. So if I ever have to fiddle with my BIOS or something like that, I think it would be on that screen, and I think I would have to turn the thing to actually use stuff. I'm waiting for monitors to come in with one of those. I don't know what the technology is. It's you've got it in your phone where it can tell if it's right side up. I'm waiting for
that would be a waste unless it's like unless it's a touchscreen monitor. It's a kind of a waste.
Well, yeah, it is, but I pay the extra $5-10 for a feature like that. So
they charge more for it. Let's be
real.
Also, are you using Windows? Are you telling Windows to default it, or are you using a different program?
Well, okay. So first, yes, Windows has been informed that my leftmost, my in front of me widescreen monitor is main, right, and this other one to my right in portrait mode is my secondary. So it understands things, so the mouse enters and leaves the screen edges correctly. This is deeper. This is a hardware level thing at the BIOS level, essentially. It's the video card being initialized on boot up. It has a primary display, and it just pushes everything to that display and ignores the other one completely. So it's like what display is that? DVI? I think it's DVI that it has as its primary, and then HDMI is its secondary. So it happens to be pushing through. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just swap cables around, figure that out, and then
you shouldn't have to. You just got to tell which one's monitor 1 and which one's monitor 2, and then tell them which one's your main. We can go through the settings, but it should be fine.
I don't know what you mean by settings though, because this is literally booting up without Windows being there, right? So this is not even BIOS level, because the BIOS, so the motherboard has its own video card essentially cooked in, and that's what the BIOS has access to. It doesn't actually even know, it doesn't understand the video card at all. So I don't, unless there's some weird way of flashing some firmware in the video card, I've got no way of doing that. But it's really easy for me just to swap cables around and then tell Windows to do things correctly.
Well, you shouldn't have to. This is a new installation of Windows for me, and all I had to do was just play within the Windows setting after logging in, and everything works fine.
Right.
Even when it restarts.
Right. But I was talking about before Windows is loaded, right? While Windows is loading, its loading splash screen is on the wrong screen and is sideways. Not that really matters, since my computer boots up in seconds. But it's a nuisance of mine. It just means, like, if I press delete during boot up and I go into my BIOS because I want to fiddle with some setting or other, it's gonna refer to the wrong monitor. But yeah, like I said, easy to fix. It's not a Windows thing, not at all. So it's just, you discover these little nuances, these nuisances, but it turns out they're pretty easy to I think it's going to be really easy for me to fix. Like I could do it during the break, but that would be dumb. That would be dumb. So yeah, the headache is gone. It's one of these all day headaches. My main screen is kind of bright now, but what can you do? I don't know. Yeah. So speaking of hardware, before I totally forget, I think this keyboard is finally crapping out. It's a fantastic Dell multimedia keyboard. It will probably cost me too much to get a replacement for. I've got two spares and they're both Dell. They're exactly the same, but this one's got like extra buttons across the top that, I mean, I use the calculator button every month, really, but there's a volume control knob that I like a lot. So I might just switch to one of my other keyboards. The control key, the left control key, not only is it a little bit wobbly, like it's really squishy, like really squishy. And it still works though. I'm not really sure what's going on. And it's actually got a dent in it. I use it so often that I've actually dented a plastic key. I don't think I've worn it away. I don't know what's going on with that. It's not like it has some cover to it or anything like that. It's smooth, really smooth with this nice dent. So I think it's comical. This is one of these things that I would share on my Instagram or whatever the heck, because the entire side of the keyboard is worn away from my hand cupping it and riding up on the control key. So it's the stuff you learn. But I've had this for years and years and years. I think I've had this for more than 10 years. I'm trying to remember when I bought this. Probably like 2006, something silly like that. And it's good. I think they still make this. Dell is great. I recommend Dell. This episode is not brought to you by Dell. It's not sponsored. It's not sponsored at all. Not yet. Speaking of sponsorship, Minion, have you ever thought about like getting an Amazon account and actually having the Amazon referral stuff, figuring that stuff out? Because I often refer to products that I'm buying or that I'm using or that I can suggest. And that I'm going to be doing more and more of that for the audio stuff that I'm going to start talking about. I mean, if that's something that that can go on.
I have no idea how it works and such, but
so this is a 20% time. This is one of those things that would literally pay off. I mean, obviously it doesn't matter right now because there's no, the audience that we have that is interested in the stuff that I might be talking about. They're not getting into podcasting right now. So we don't have shoppers through us. So our recommendations are kind of falling on deaf ears, but it is like a 20% time to think about. So put it on your to-do list, and it would involve going through old videos and replacing the links. And it just means that if a video is interesting and active and talks about certain popular topics and then it refers to products, it means that would, I actually don't know how it works, but I would be interested. I would be excited to learn this kind of stuff because I'm the type, but I would encourage you to attempt to be kind of curious about these things because like I said, it literally pays off. And I mean, there's more than that, right? But I know nothing about these things. What I always wanted what I envisioned for this podcast was me being the guy that more or less talks and helps inspire ideas and conversation and this kind of stuff. And you managing behind the scenes as well as you can. So figuring out community stuff and figuring out monetization stuff or platform stuff or this kind of thing. And but that actually requires work. So I'm working right now, technically speaking, right? Have to improve my clarity and my pace and all this kind of stuff. So that's stuff I do in my spare time. And I do the talk, right? Plus I do the editing and stuff. So I'm pulling my weight, right? So I would expect like an hour a day, because there are times when you're not even spending your 15 minutes a day. Just I just need you to perform tiny actions and they're just not happening. It's so annoying. Okay, well, I guess I'm not putting you on the spot anymore. So I did talk to my doctor about the mask thing. So this was, and my doctor confirmed it was hyperventilation from rebreathing carbon dioxide. Basically, I had a bag over my face, and it's like having a paper bag, and you're huffing it, and that's what was happening with this perfectly formed mask. And it's the combination of the material and the fit, and it's dangerous. It's dangerous. And my doctor is not willing to step up to bat for fighting for this. So I know some people. So I'm going to talk with the province and a couple of intermediaries. So we've got, so in Canada is split up into provinces. So this is in the United States, you have states. So it's kind of a parallel in a lot of countries where you have provinces. And our provinces have distinct control over their healthcare system. And there are some laws and some things that are common, but there's quite a lot of, so for example, for the Times, for something like masks, I can actually speak to more or less local government, and they can make decisions for the province. So that's the direction I want to pursue, even though I will kind of poke around at the federal level, at the Canada-wide level. I'll send a couple of emails and just mention this and see how they react. Right? I don't know that anybody cares enough because, like I said, if you feel kind of tired wearing a mask, it's pretty obvious what you do. If you're wearing a mask and you don't feel good and your breathing doesn't feel good, step outside and take it off. Not hard. It's still legal. So yeah, so I'll talk about that adventure as we go, but I probably won't because that ends up talking about. I wouldn't want to bring up individual people in administration or politics or whatever, because some stuff happens way behind the scenes, and whatever I learn probably isn't meant for general distribution. And some of this might be drama. I like being involved in political drama now. This is not the first time. At any rate, I think that mask experience has actually kind of messed me up psychologically. I think I'm getting nervous around wearing masks because of that. I need to think about replacing my masks, and I need to think about breathability and all this kind of stuff. I think because my previous mask, it's not over the ear, it's not ear loop, right? It's behind the head. So it's got two bands. One is behind the neck and it goes kind of around the chin. So it's one continuous loop. And the other is kind of around above the ears, around the head, and around kind of the nose area. And it's a fine fit. It's just really awkward to put on and take off. And so I want to replace it with like around the ear loops. So I need to get a different one that isn't going to kill me. But what I'm going to do is I know people. Okay, so just hold on for a second while I say this. I'm going to get single layer mask. Okay, but I'm going to have a bandana over it. And so that's my 2 layers. And I'll get something that is reasonable, and that's going to be breathable enough. Like I'm going to, right? So it's meant for like snot. And so this will be a snot catcher. That's fine. And it should be good enough. And it will have the appearance that people are expecting of a mask if I need to pull a bandana down, because bandanas are single layer. Remember, they're not appropriate. So that hopefully that will work out, and that will be a different kind of fashion statement, I suppose. Like I have to think about these things now. What do people like who wear suits? What are they doing these days? You suppose we need to find some pictures of politicians are wearing just ugly masks and stuff like that, or just flat matte black masks. Which
at this point, I'd imagine just whatever they wear plus a mask.
Well, yeah, it's I'm still imagining people like stepping it up and having. I don't know that a politician would start wearing patterns or anything like that, but I mean ties are a really really big deal, believe it or not. And so I'm like, well, maybe, you know, and it's one of these things where if they're it's not like a virtue signaling thing for them to wear masks, because for a lot of politicians under certain circumstance will take it off if they're doing like a speech or something like that. But if it's in front of a microphone that's being shared for that moment, then I don't know. I don't know. I haven't actually looked at. So there are regular updates. So the health minister for a province will actually, you can, there are YouTube channels, right, for this kind of stuff. So you, I mean, if anybody here is interested in what the heck is happening in Canada, you can actually poke around and I think it's what, canada.gc.ca, or is it something like this? Oh man, I don't even know my government's website. Minion, go be useful. Find the Canadian government's website. But at any rate, all
That sounds right.
sounds good. Everything. So gc.ca is everything official government, and we've got an official COVID thing, but it's weird because it's actually hard to find the individual like little YouTube channels for that, for a province's health department that would have these videos recorded, and you can actually get the provincial health official giving rambling off the numbers. And the previous ones that I've seen a few. The previous ones I've seen, there was no mask, but it's been a long time, so I'm not sure. I don't think I'm misremembering. And they share the mic too and everything, so I don't know. I don't know what drama is happening at the governmental level these days anyway. But I still wouldn't be surprised if we had like masks and ties matching. It's just so odd. Man, this is so odd. Oh, Halloween is canceled in Ontario. So I was wrong about Halloween. There is pressure on that. I don't know if it's going to be respected at all. So Ontario is our highest population province. It used to have our capital in Toronto. I think we moved our capital to Ottawa after we burnt the White House down. I can't remember the drama, but it's in Ottawa now, which is also in Ontario. And our oldest population is through there, and then Quebec. And I think Quebec has it pretty bad. I actually don't know offhand. But I think it was Ontario, then Quebec, and then a question mark for the rest of the country in terms of effects. And I don't know how big Halloween is in Quebec, but it's always been big for me. So it would. I mean, I will still give out candy, regardless of what's going on, right? I'll still be sitting out there in my mask. I'm not going to wear a mask behind my mask, so it's not going to be a proper mask. It's just going to be a mask. It's just going to be a Halloween mask without being, the typical grocery shopping mask. Although that would be terrible. Have you seen people walking around with like stormtrooper helmets and stuff like that? Get pictures of that. Like, or is that only in America? Because they're just like that. They're just weird. I suppose I'm gonna switch to something completely weird. I'm learning more about audio and what I can do in this particular space. I have other things to attend to, but I have to move shelves and stuff in order to get at the walls, in order to examine them and kind of judge whether or not I need to do anything weird. So we have some electrical in this particular, so the room I'm in right now, the room I'm talking in, has one particular wall, which on the other side has a laundry room. And it's fine during this recording, but not generally. And so there's stuff I need to look at, because there's a gaping hole on this side and there's a gaping hole on the other side. But it's not all the way through from that point, but through elsewhere in the wall. So it's essentially one layer of drywall is because it's got holes on both sides. And so I don't know what I can do to improve either side. I have my eye on some spray foam. Like I'll take it seriously, right? So it would be spray foam, but it's meant as there's stuff that's meant for sound, like sound insulation stuff. There's stuff that's meant for insulation, but the stuff I'm thinking of, because I'm doing it right, is you're never going to offend somebody if you're spraying something in the wall for like a crack, if it's like 1500 Fahrenheit fireproof sealant. So that's what I have my eye on. I just need to look at the gaps to see if that's appropriate, if there's something else that I should think about, this kind of stuff. So I'm not really sure what's going on. But in the laundry room, you've got hoses which lead to your washing machine. You've also got piping which will, if you've got a basin or something like that, which is really common, then so you've got those pipes, and then you've got the taps. Usually you have taps that appear that you have hoses for your washing machine. And those taps for your washing machine usually are inset in a little plastic cubby hole. And that's just a little plastic cubby hole. Sound will punch right through that much more easily than it will the drywall. The drywall's not good as it is. But it'll punch right through the plastic, which is right next to the washing machine. And then, so it's got probably no insulation, right? Maybe it has some rattling pipes through there. And it's got that void, which is going to be kind of meaningless. I mean, it's if it's sealed on one side, then the void inside is meaningful. And then it hits the other drywall on the room side. And it's terrible drywall. And so it'll just punch right through. And it's got actual holes in it because it has inset boxes for, there's like acoustic cabling that runs through, because this room used to be like not a theater, but one of these kind of like secondary living room type of things. So it used to be wired for stereo speakers and such. And the wiring means that there's like a little box in there, and that box isn't particularly sealed. So it's basically a hole in the drywall, and it's not really well done at all. It doesn't even have a plate over it. And there's a big electrical box there too, which is one gigantic hole that's not properly mounted and all this. So, it's one of these things where I'll mount it correctly, and then I need to determine whether or not I either pull it out and spend like $50 on this putty that goes around the box to put it in and give it sound insulation properties, and then spray foam to seal it when it's put back in properly. Or maybe not, maybe just spray foam it. Or I don't know. Right? Because technically speaking, it doesn't matter if the laundry room is not in use during the podcast. My concern is, of course, everyday life. If I'm in here doing other recording, what's going on, right? So I may as well get into it. I'm still looking at what it would take to build a sound studio. And I may as well, this room isn't really used, so that corner, do I build it out? So that laundry room wall, I could technically speaking put either a temporary barrier or redo the wall or something, which, that's an ordeal I probably won't do. But if I build a temporary wall, a stand or something, like stand it up, put some pegs so it's not right up against the wall, but it's right there, use it as a sound barrier, as a void, put a fake wall up, and then put that insulation and all this kind of stuff. That reminds me. Okay, I'm the type. So there's this stuff called rock wool, which is the recommended stuff. There's this other stuff whose name I can't remember offhand. Hey, I may as well click. I'm gonna clickety clack and look it up right now. Where is it? Okay, so there's this stuff called rockboard AFB. And it's a semi-rigid insulation, so you can actually cut it and all this kind of weird stuff. And there's some other materials that are highly recommended, but rock wool is recommended because spun glass, your fiberglass insulation is deadly, right? So you have to wear a special material around it. You have to have a mask on, which may be fairly expensive these days, and wear gloves and long sleeves because it'll irritate everything everywhere. But I really don't trust that, because it's one thing to have it in your walls, in your outside walls usually, yeah, because you then put a layer of, well, usually have a vapor barrier on top of it, which is a great start, and then you have drywall on top of that. So it's you're safe from it, just living in your house in a room that happens to have fiberglass drywall over there somewhere. But if I'm handling it myself in order to build a false wall, and if I'm capturing it in fabric, and that fabric is meant to allow air to pass, well, it may well keep the fiberglass in, but I don't trust it. You get YouTube how-to videos for making sound booths and sound treatment panels and stuff like this, and they're not taking these precautions. They're going to die young if they're unlucky, right? Because this stuff is not good. Now, rock wool is supposed to be good, but that's a lie. And you can look at the studies and the certification and you can look at all that stuff, but there is one simple fact about fiber and your lungs, which is if it is not organically soluble, if it doesn't dissolve eventually, it'll stay in you forever. And your body, it has no ability to do something with it. So if you're breathing in rock wool, it's rock. It's never going away. And unless you can be smart enough to, like, if your body is smart enough to, what it does is it captures it and it coats it in mucus, essentially. And unless for some reason you're able to cough it up, it's just there forever. And that's the kind of stuff that does bad things, really bad things. So rock wool is just as bad, except people pretend it's okay. So, but that's an alternative. And I went and I did a bunch of research on these materials because I'm me. So I went and I found out, right? I listened to some of the really subtle semi-conspiratorial comments, and then I looked stuff up myself. And then I looked at stuff like, you look at Wikipedia, it's like, oh, everything is safe, guys. Like, ooh. But you actually go and look into the studies and stuff like this, and no, it's really, it can't be. And it's not, I don't have to like fake having reason about this. It's just how all of these elements work. And so there is one thing though, where it's possible to have an insulation that is organically soluble. I think that's the correct phrase. So I actually contacted the main guys that make rock wool to see if if their product is like that and they just don't advertise it because they're dumb, or because they have specification sheets and stuff like that. They've got all the technical details, like some really good stuff, or if they have some other product. And if you poke around, you might actually get lucky and learn that maybe they've got something experimental that isn't on the market yet, or whatever the heck. And I just need a small amount, right? I need enough for, heck, if I had enough for like a 4x3 panel, that would probably be a good start. I think for a good space, you should have you'd have three, essentially three. So what you need is some sort of, so this is for sound treatment, not for isolation, so not for soundproofing. For soundproofing, you want to have like 7 feet tall floating fake walls of multiple layers. And so you'd have these panels that are like with 24-inch studs and 7-foot walls and all this. And you'd actually have to take it really seriously, which is, whoa boy, is it expensive. I looked into it. Whoa boy. I actually started doing the breakdown of what everything would cost just because I wanted to know. And no, it's just not correct. But for little treatment panels, you have 3, okay? Because there's 3 vectors that should be covered. So sound treatment is a way of, let's say you've got a hallway problem. So you're in your bathroom, you're in your shower stall, and what would you do to get rid of that there's a specific sound, right? What that sound is is your voice echoing off of all the surfaces everywhere. But there's technically only three. There's the x-axis, the y-axis, and the z-axis. So if you're standing still, like you're sitting right now, your x-axis, so one axis is if you were to reach your arms straight out left and right. So when you talk, some of the sound goes straight out that way. Well, it goes in a bubble, right? But you've got a wall directly there. Say you're in a square room, which is awful for audio. Then you've got straight in front of you and behind you. So you can imagine you're speaking. The sound bounces from the wall in front of you and then washes back over you. And then you've got up and down, because your voice will still be heard, and a lot of if you've got like a little shower stall, it usually has a tiled ceiling. But if it's in a regular bathroom, it might not. It might just be a really tall ceiling that doesn't get splashed just because it's so far away. But it's still a problem it's the same kind of problem in an empty room. And if you wanted to sound treat, you'd have to have something either behind or in front of you to take care of that vector, that direction, something to the left or to the right of you to take care of that direction, and then something above you. And if you have three panels, then that's good enough. That's good enough. And I had one guy, I had talked about him before. Oh man, why can't I remember his name? Mike Delgadio did an adorable video with him in a bathroom. And this is a perfect example. He is somebody who is aware of the dangers of fiberglass, and he is handling a bare fiberglass panel with only half of it with a sheet on it, even though he knows and has talked about the dangers of fiberglass. It's just like, no, I want him to live. He's a really nice guy. And so that's but he demonstrated it in a bathroom. And so but I would take it a little bit more seriously. If you're mounting something, not quite on walls, but away, that is even more. You never think about some of the things that are around you, just how much engineering goes into everything. And audio engineering there is an ongoing joke that, like, quote unquote real engineers have about how kind of offensive it is that the concept of audio engineering exists, because like it's not building things, right? It's not like but it's still really, really silly hard. And there's some people that have calculated there's no real way to do it the right way. But for certain ranges of sound, what materials are effective at doing what and at what thickness. And one of the things that nobody talks about loudly enough is if you've got some sort of sound treatment panel, you buy it commercially, or you make something that's really simple, slightly dangerous, but it's really simple. And you hang it on the wall like a picture, and people say this, and that's wrong. That's wrong because there's the material itself and there's the wall behind it. And the idea is you're changing how things reflect. Now, if you're putting something up directly on the wall, it's essentially becoming something like an extension of that wall. So it's the same thing, more or less, as you having that box with a piece of drywall closing the back. That's what happens when you're hanging it right up against the wall. So it kind of acts like that. And that is different. That is different than if you were to hang it on a peg and keep it. And good audio engineers calculate, well, how far away is good? How effective is it as it moves further away from a wall? And of course, there's all kinds of weird distances, and it means things for different ranges of sound and magic, and I don't understand. And half of them kind of vaguely don't understand some stuff, and it's just weird and hard. And this is why people are worth very good money for helping with this kind of stuff. But I mean, I've only got so much space to work with, so there would need to be a way to hang one of these panels, 3 of these panels really, X number of inches away from their surface. And so the one on the ceiling would just be hung by hooks and wires. Just like a potted plant is hung by hooks, you can do the same thing with, and these panels they should be as heavy as possible, but honestly, you're not going to get fiberglass or any kind of insulation that's that heavy, right? So they're not as heavy as a potted plant. And figure out how to, I don't know, just cut out some pegs or something like that for the four corners and just kind of hang them somehow on. People are saying, well, just put on some L brackets or something like this, which is probably a great idea. We'll read random comments on everything everywhere, forum posts, and you'll find somebody that has the most blunt, cheap solution for a particular problem. It's yeah. So yeah, L brackets. Those are cheap. Don't buy them on Amazon. Actually go to a hardware store and get them for real cheap. And just get big ones. You can get like 4 inches by 5 inches, and that's too big on one side, but it's plenty fine to like just kind of hang or lean or whatever the heck. And I guess while I'm there, this is totally segment 3 stuff, but while I'm there, so there's this idea called a bass trap, which is a myth. It's a thing that can't exist. It can't exist for everyday people, let's say. It can't exist for do-it-yourselfers, and you're going to get do-it-yourselfers who have great YouTube videos and go through, and they've got shops and all, and what they're making is garbage. Even though they're great people with good intentions using fantastic tools and plans, and they're doing it right and it looks fantastic, it does nothing or next to nothing. And it's certainly something an everyday person could never do. And so if you look up something like a diaphragm bass trap or something like this, it's ludicrous. It's so hard to make. And normally what they are is they're these like wedges that you hang or you paste up on the walls, and they're horrifyingly expensive. And they really do need to be thick. Otherwise, they're kind of useless, because bass is really the low end of sound energy is really, really long waves. And so that entire long wave really has to get caught in that foam and bounce and then get caught by the rest of the foam coming back for it to really mean anything. And so quote unquote trapping or reducing, it effectively does not happen. One person calculated how thick the foam would have to be in order for it to mean, if it's just like foam, like acoustic treatment foam, for it to mean something, and it's 3 feet thick. And he's got the science behind it. He's got the math behind it. It's like it would have to be 3 feet thick, and otherwise it's just meaningless. And so, but you will help with echoes and stuff like this, and there's help for things like standing waves. And this relates back to the air gap. As it turns out, if you air gap one of these just a little bit away from your wall, it helps tremendously. But there's this really weird idea where if you have it too far away from your wall, odd things happen behind it in the corner of the, again, like I said, man, there's actually serious science about this. There is no way I'm going to get into that as a hobby. I'd rather get into theoretical particle physics than audio engineering. Like the math is probably easier for the physics, honestly. But it's interesting to learn this stuff because I wanted to know if I was going to get ripped off buying some of these products. And the answer is universally yes. The thing that I would need to shoot for is just removing as much of the reflections as possible, but not all of them. Well, I can't anyway if I even wanted to. And turn it from corner of the room sound, from hallway sound, from bathroom sound, into a comfortable bedroom sound. And that can actually be accomplished with a bunch of layers of blankets. And I'm thinking of doing that with, moving blankets, and I've got a better way of hanging them and all this kind of stuff. So we'll see how that goes. I think I'm going to do a basic version of that for next show and see what happens. And for next segment, I'm actually going to turn my gain up so it can be heard a little bit better, because I don't like the little blue lines that I'm getting in Audacity. So we're done for this segment. I'm going to take a 10-minute break, and we're going to be right back. I'll see you soon.
And we're back.
Yeah, well, hello, lookers and bots. This is Lucid Indifference, episode 30, segment 2. So I made a small change to my
Stop for
audios.
5 seconds again.
No, we're going to keep going because that doesn't matter anymore. Remember?
Right, okay.
Right? The sync doesn't matter. It's going to catch up when it catches up. And it's disruptive to demand that. If it turns out that some combination of Discord or Twitch isn't working out, probably Discord, then we'll look back at, I think Telegram is a pretty good one these days, or Talks. We'll look back at Talks again.
But Telegrams is from one point to another, and this is broadcasting to whoever. It's a bit different. Live talks are different as well.
Okay, so I don't understand, because all we need to do is talk to one another and have you stream that audio broadcast through OBS. So what you're listening to is Discord grabbing my audio and feeding it to you, and Discord messing it up. So if we replace Discord with anything else, it doesn't really matter. And as long as you can grab that audio stream and push it into OBS, then it works. So we could use Skype for all it matters. It's just whatever is convenient. At this point, it doesn't really matter, because we don't need a secure channel. We just need reliability. Okay. So I did turn the gain slightly up so I can hear myself a little bit better. I had problems last episode, or at least I thought I did, with doing something called clipping. And clipping is if you are so loud that you're stressing out a microphone. And this doesn't necessarily mean you're shouting. It's just there are these moments of air pressure that wash over a microphone and press too hard against its membranes. And it depends on how hard it's listening. So it depends on its gain settings and stuff like this. So I had myself really up nice and loud, and I had the microphone very close to me. Now it's the same distance from me, and now I've turned up the gain, so it's the same as before. And the mic is the same distance to me, but it's further down, so it's lower and it's angled. So it's kind of like tipping its head back, so it's pointed at my mouth. And this is a technique where so you can move a microphone in multiple places, where it can be right in front of your mouth, and that's very effective, but it's also very risky. So because your breath goes right in that direction. But you can move the microphone around and kind of point it at where your mouth is, and then the breaths go in that direction and not at the microphone as much. And so right now I've got it below and tipped, and my breath is going over its head. So it's quite good, and it looks good. And I'm doing all this stuff so that I can learn better technique, because I have a better microphone coming in, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So I'm going to talk about sleep, because I haven't talked about that in a little while. I think I talked about that last show. Can I call them episodes? Like, you can correct me, but can't I? It's so much easier.
They're essentially, yes, they're somewhat different meanings, but they essentially mean the exact same thing.
Well, I think the idea of episode is from episodic, so it's regular occurring. It doesn't talk about, I don't think the idea builds in the idea of story arcs, which is, so we adapt, we think about episodes in terms of television episodes, but that just means once a week or whatever the heck. That is its episode. Episode is also used for other terms, like for psychology.
I didn't catch any of that, but I didn't really catch a quarter of that.
Oh, okay. So this was the Discord thing again?
Yep.
Are we still kind of training you to... Okay.
I can piece things together, but I'm a minion.
Okay. So I'll keep using episode, because it's just got a nice flow to it. I like that word. It's got a lot of syllables, has meaning. So I think the last episode I also talked about sleep. I'm going to talk about it as much as I can because it's one of the most important things in our lives, and yet we don't think about it enough. We don't do enough about it to improve it. Anyhow, winter is pretty much is coming upon us, and people make the joke, like especially Americans make the joke that Canada's cold, but a lot. So there's a chunk of Canada that's quite moderate actually, and it's like it varies a lot. Weather is kind of funny and stuff like that, but there's a lot of the United States that's absolutely brutal compared to a chunk of Canada. And as I said before, Canada, the population is primarily like a strip to its south, and so it's not very bad. It's not bad, with some exceptions actually, like Alberta. anyhow, and because the temperature tends to be dropping more and more in the evenings, that means that if you've got heating, right? You've got heating even at night when people are sleeping, and it needs to kind of keep the temperature above freezing, right? Above a certain point to keep people comfortable. People get really good sleep when they're a little bit cooler and they just bundle up with lots of sheets. Like I especially love this. But so I recently fiddled again with the thermostat because I was unhappy with where it was. It got reset because we replaced the battery and we were just too lazy to do anything about the heat side of things. We were obsessing over the cold side of things because of summertime. Anyhow. So I got woken up by the thermostat, and this is an unpleasant experience to say the least. And I've had this has been a nightmarishly awful thing for years everywhere I've ever lived, with every house. And so it's funny because when you sleep in, when you've got a problem with sleeping in, like you're sleeping in on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, then there is that opportunity for the heat to just burn you alive and make your morning experience, make your waking up experience kind of awful. You're sweaty and uncomfortable and whatever the heck in bed. I'm really, really susceptible to that, to being like, it'll just wreck my dreams and it'll wake me up and I'll just feel kind of terrible. And this is yet another advantage of being a morning lark. Yet another advantage of waking up early is waking up before your thermostat kicks in and starts cooking things. And it depends on where you are, right? It depends on where you sleep and where your registers are. So your duct work and what direction it's blowing in and all this kind of stuff, right? So it depends on, maybe you could deal with like a couple of degree difference because it would take only X amount of time to warm the house up that much. But if you let it get really, really cold at night and warm it up quite aggressively, that's going to just blow a lot of hot air. And if it's pointed right at you as you sleep, it's going to stink. So waking up early just completely dodges that problem. And I had been sleeping in a couple of times, and I'm now suffering. I'm now having a bad day because that's what woke me up today. Because I tried to sleep in. So it's pretty bad. So it's not, I think, I mean, I wonder if there's a way to do that on purpose, but it really does depend on where your heat is in your room. At any rate, because that would be a great way of encouraging somebody who ought to be a morning lark. Like Minion, I think you're beyond hope for something like that. But I mean, it's a dream. I think if you accomplished it, it'd be wonderful. But maybe you're just not the type. You're just so skilled at staying up. You're so skilled at being lazy. Like you're even so lazy you don't feel like sleeping. It's the dumbest thing. So related to the temperature, and it's also related to acoustic management. There's really nothing you can do about a door. I've talked about this before. Unless it's a solid core door, which is not really going to happen inside a house. And you've got problems with sound getting through. Sound from a hallway, sound from wherever, penetrating through to like a bedroom, say, for example. Well, you can put in weather stripping inside. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And that helps both with the acoustics. Like if you seal off so that air can't get through, So check to see if light can't get through, air is probably not getting through. It's pretty safe. Get a flashlight, somebody on the other side of the door, and just check. And if you're able to weatherproof it and seal it all off, hey, that's great. That's going to be okay for sound, right? Oh, just okay. And if you get like something on your sill that bubbles up so that your door pushes up against it and it's got a good seal down there too, especially down there, then it's also going to be important for cold. Because if you've got a room down on the first floor, let's say, and it's near a doorway, like an outside doorway, you get all that nice cold air as soon as people are coming in and out. It will just, there is this nice layer of outside air that rushes over everything, and it will find its way into a room. So it's really important to put any kind of barrier you can against that. And I actually purchased it was like a kit that has a little sill that I can glue down outside like under the door essentially, and weather stripping and more weather stripping. And I've got experience with the weather stripping. That's trivial stuff to stick. It's like just you peel off a thing at the back and you stick it up against the frame and yawn, right? But I've never fiddled with the little the sill stuff, so the underside of the door stuff. So that was a new experience. And what I was given was absolute trash. I don't know what they were thinking with it. It just doesn't work. So they get it in like a garbage bag. I'm just sending all this junk back to them, my half-assed attempt. And no, I'll take my money back. I'll take all of my money back for that mess. And I'm not going to be forgiving about that kind of thing. Because, so you can imagine it's a convoluted shape, right? But it was shipped flat. It should have been shipped as a bit of a dome. But it was shipped flat, and it was shipped with a couple of strips of adhesive, right? And, normal kind of adhesive where you peel off a backing and then you get the extra sticky bit that you stick on. In this case, there's already a little sill down there. So I would stick it onto that and essentially elevates it into this squishy thing that would create a great seal. And, but this was whatever this was, this glue, it just came off of the actual material. There was no little protective film for me to peel off. So it was completely useless. So I tried, I had double-sided tape for hanging mirrors, and I tried that, but that didn't work out. So I'm not gonna mess around. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with that space. There are things that I can buy that just like they're like socks on the bottom of your door. And I'll probably get one of those. I don't know how effective they're going to be because it has to be a really good seal for it to be meaningful. So there might be some combination of that in my future, as well as some sort of Velcroed over the door blanket, which, I mean, that's better than nothing, but it's not very good. It's a lot of money, which is annoying. Now, before I forget about the weather stripping, I'm kind of sweaty after fiddling with all that weather stripping for that much time. And it turns out this door is not hung correctly. So it's wonky. The top right corner kind of sticks into the room a little bit too much, and it's kind of shifted in a different direction. So I would need 2 layers of weather stripping in one area, and then I can't even fit anything in other areas because the stripping is too thick. So this afternoon was just a terrible experience, just terrible. And I was so looking forward to having a warmer room with all these people coming and going, not having to wear slippers one day, right? Not having to sit cross-legged in a chair at a desk. Speaking of random stuff that I ordered in, I love IKEA. So I'm not going to ever really suggest Amazon to other people, even though I'll talk about the stuff I've gotten on it and I'll link products and things like that. I'm not proud of that, but IKEA, I'm always really impressed by IKEA. So I would, if I had choices, there's a few companies that I will definitely go to, and IKEA for just random cool stuff, I will go to them. Even if it's slightly more expensive, it's definitely more reliable than buying from whomever on Amazon. And so I was looking at all kinds of stuff because I was thinking about getting a different desk because I needed one of a different size because I'm rearranging this room. And I can't even remember what I ordered, but I ordered a couple of little things. And I ordered a mirror, that's right. So that was the one thing that I ordered, and maybe something else at the same time. That mirror, I wanted to mount it with tape, but I'm like, had a conversation with a friend and he's like, well, okay. So I did mount it with proper screws and stuff like that. So, okay, fine. So it's really up there well. And so I'm happy with that. But when they shipped it to me, they also shipped an ironing board. I didn't order that. They just shipped one. And so I'm like, well, I don't really want to deal with having to return an ironing board. And so I just had it hanging in my hallway down by my front door with most of the packaging so I could technically wrap it back up and maybe ship it somehow, I guess. So if they like call me and ask me about this, they figure out the mistake they made. I'm like, okay, well, I've got it. I don't know how to ship it back. I'm not paying for it to be shipped back. And it's an ironing board. That would kind of cost as much as the ironing board does. And I looked up on their website for that ironing board, and it's a good one. It's a really good one. It's a little bit torturous because I would have ordered that ironing board had that was on my radar. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to leave it there and wait. And the other day I got an email from FedEx saying, your package has been successfully delivered. I'm like, what package? And go and check outside my front door. Okay, was it stolen? Aw. And no, I looked into it further, and apparently it was the FedEx acknowledgement of delivering that IKEA package from like a month previous. I'm like, okay, what? And then I get a satisfaction survey from IKEA. Like, hey, how'd our last delivery go? I'm like, oh, okay. So what happened is somebody somewhere messed up, and IKEA had an investigation going through FedEx, and there's some expiry, and it elapsed, and the mechanics kicked in. FedEx gave up on it. They couldn't find the package, or the investigation into my shipment didn't go anywhere, or maybe IKEA gave up, and IKEA closed that order. Which is weird because, I had all of my, as far as I knew, it's just the oddest thing. So they send me an email. So I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I'll fill that survey out. You guys were great. Thanks. This was a really great experience, guys. Do that again next time. It won't say no. And it was not an inexpensive art. It's IKEA, but still, it was good even for IKEA. And, so now I've got an ironing board. So that works out rather well because I needed something to like fold other stuff against and treat one of my walls. So I'm like, I'm going to do the most budget rearrangement of this room for audio. And I think it's going to work out thanks to IKEA's wacky ironing board. I'll just lean it up. It's a little bit soft, but I can put stuff over top of it and kind of treat one of the walls. So that was an interesting experience. Like, okay, life is just weird. Life is just like that. Yeah, before I forget about the pumpkin thing, Minion, do you have any value for pumpkin seeds now that we're technically going to have access to pumpkin seeds?
The phrase was asked, no.
No? I don't know what to do with pumpkin seeds. I don't remember particularly liking them, but it sounds like work trying to get seeds out of the mush. So I'm not sure.
You just rinse them with water and then just oven bake them with seasoning.
But I have to separate seeds out of the muck that gets scooped out. So that sounds like work. I could make you do it, but I can't remember liking pumpkin seeds.
I'm not going anywhere near those pumpkins.
You're not going to like bathe in the guts of pumpkins just for kicks.
We'd need a lot of pumpkins.
We would. I mean, I wonder if there is some sort of Twitch thought who would do that and then sell it. I should suggest it somewhere and get somebody to turn that into some bad meme. Pretend like it has happened and yeah, pass the joke around. And for our listeners in the future who have no idea what joke I just made, there was a woman who sold her bathwater online and actually made quite a lot of money from it. Was it just the one time or was it multiple times?
It was one time, and then she did condoms.
Oh my.
And that sold out.
Oh my. Maybe you shouldn't have said that because I'm probably going to edit that out. That is a little adult.
I mean...
Were they used?
I'd imagine no.
Okay, good. So, because there are custom printed everything, right? I was just looking into custom printed stuff and not for this show or anything weird like that, but somebody was asking, they wanted to know if you could buy a Frisian flag anywhere or shirts or something like this. And you can buy things like this from the Netherlands directly. So for our listeners, so I had been interested in following the Frisian language, which is a language, which is the minority language in the Netherlands. The other is Dutch, and almost everybody speaks English as well. And it's a little weird. They're great with languages. So it's like Dutch, English, and Frisian for some people in one area. And I'm interested in that because I've got some family lineage that goes back there and stuff like that. And it's the closest cousin to English, so I was learning it. That's kind of stalled, but I just got a message from the developers of that program thanking me for my feedback, which was ludicrously extensive. And I had only covered 2 weeks, and they're 7 weeks in now. I just kind of gave up after a while. I need to look at it again, right? And maybe I'll just get them to bring me into the second course when they revise things, and then I'll just take it more serious, more. Anyhow, so that's why I'm paying attention to like these Facebook groups and things like that have to do with the Netherlands or Dutch culture or Frisian stuff and things like this. And so one person was asking, well, where can you get this stuff? You know, and I bought, I think it might have been on eBay. I bought a couple stickers just because I thought it would be cool. And I want to slap one over top of the Dell logo on this cheap laptop that I've got. And it would be adorable. And if I'm out on the town, if I'm typing on if I'm working on my book in some coffee shop, this was a dream of mine. I'm probably not going to do it these days. And somebody recognizes that, then hey, it's ridiculously rare that I could, but if somebody recognized that, then I would make a friend that way. And if somebody goes, oh, that's so cute, you've got little hearts on that, then that's a conversation starter. It's like having a small dog. Anyway, just earlier today, somebody was asking about where you can get flags in a shirt. And it's really, really ridiculously expensive shipping to get stuff from the Netherlands. And I'm not, and I know things are weird in Europe, so they have certain shipping things that things are just naturally expensive, and I guess people are used to it. But when it kind of hops out of Europe over here, things are just kind of crazy, and you've got weird border stuff that might kick in, which I do not order from Europe if I can ever help it. I look for some sort of reseller or something like that, like I did for my candy and cookies and stuff like that, my holiday stuff. And there is, I probably bookmarked it somewhere, so I might find it and link it in the description of this particular video when it goes up. There are services that will print anything on anything for you. Man, I found this website and I'm poking around, and like somebody decided to print a flag on a custom baseball. You can actually get a custom printed baseball. Like, and it's real and everything. And it's really inexpensive. It's like $25, probably US dollars. So that's still fairly reasonable. I don't know what shipping is either, so it's probably not that reasonable unless it's free shipping somehow. But some American company, it's always free shipping within the continental US. It's like maybe they'll sell to Canada, maybe. All right, okay, that was random. Yeah, let's talk about Cyberpunk. Like, we got 24 minutes. We gotta rant on about this. So, what the heck is the full name of the game? Cyberpunk 20 something? 2047?
Cyberpunk 2077.
2077. Okay, so this is a mature universe that was. I don't know that I am hyped for it because I'm a really old tabletop role player. So I understand this genre, even this literary genre fairly well from the actual tabletop games. So all these posers liking this game. I mean, they're liking it as a game. I'm liking it as, I like that this category of game is coming out. And there's a big hype train, I suppose. I mean, I was never on board the hype train. So until like Keanu Reeves made a splash for some reason, he got memed for being himself. Like, he's just like that.
I mean, did you see the part where someone in the audience told him about him being breathtaking?
Yeah, so that got memed, or that got whatever, signal boosted essentially, right? And that's wonderful and all. That did get associated because that was a presentation. That was his reveal of him being was he an actual modeled as a character, or is he just a voice actor in the game?
Sorry, what was that?
So Keanu Reeves, is he as a, like, is his image modeled into the game somewhere as some character? Or
they took everything, they took his physical appearance and modeled it into the game, did some alterations, and called it Johnny Silverhand.
Oh, okay, so Johnny is actually a throwback to one of his earlier characters in a movie called Johnny Mnemonic, which I highly recommend. And Johnny Mnemonic is actually based on a book. I can't remember if I read the book. I don't think I have. I'm pretty sure I haven't. And if you watch Johnny Mnemonic, you will know exactly why he was hired on to be Neo in the Matrix. Because it's like, I've joked that Keanu Reeves can't act. And I maintain that he can't act. He only plays himself he plays one role in everything. And so he's the everyman. So he's gray. You can separate the actor and the character because they're kind of the same thing. They fade away. And for a movie, that tends to be quite an attractive thing because the audience can throw themselves into this nebulous, undefined, boring character. Anyhow, so if you look at the movie Johnny Mnemonic and then understand him in the Matrix, they're the same character, right? It's just lifted. So the acting, the reactions, the everything, the mood is just the same. Now, and again, I'm valuing that. So I've learned to appreciate that, the Keanu Reeves-ness of the movies that he's been in. And the Johnny Mnemonic, the character it's a cyberpunk movie. So it involves, without spoiling it too much, it is a mix of man and machine, and it is, high tech. It's I think it takes place in Japan, and it's, Japanese businesses running things, and he is it's kind of a lesser employee working for them, and he's got high-tech hardware, cyberware in him. And the movie focuses around that character. And so calling him, and that's the thing, in that movie, he's just called Johnny. just Johnny. And I highly recommend that. In fact, Minion, I must have made you watch it at one point because it is a very good movie, in my opinion.
What movie?
Johnny Mnemonic.
I don't remember anything about it.
That's
I don't think we saw it.
no? Okay, well, I mean, that could be something we could queue up. I'd love to see it again. It's been a very long time. And so there is a direct homage to calling this character Johnny. So I don't know how many people actually know this. I'm sure it's out there. So I'm pleased to learn that. I'm pleased to learn that. But a lot of people are really hyped for this as a game, and it got delayed. It got delayed again. And it didn't just get delayed again. It got delayed again. The announcement came. Okay, so for some reason, people think Twitter is real life. So somebody tweeted the developer with, "Hey, I'm the person said the user, right, the everyday person, tweeted the developer and said, "Hey, I'm thinking of taking tomorrow off for the release of the game. Can you confirm?" I can't remember the language, but like, can you confirm undeniably that the game is definitely coming out tomorrow and that it's going to be okay for me to take the day off? And the developers actually responded publicly to this, saying, confirmed. And the day after, they announced that there's an additional delay, like the day after. And it's weird because this highlights that there are people that actually take time off work, like they catch the COVID the day of game releases, and yeah. So, and that really, the fact that happened, that signal boosted the problem that a lot of people are probably doing that. So there was quite a buzz and quite a lot of frustration over and this is the thing. And you read through all kinds of comments and all kinds of stuff. And so, I mean, one person that I read the comment of, they were saying that they've been a tester. I've been a tester. I've actually been both a beta tester, a public beta tester, and a private alpha tester for major video games. And like, I have an NDA that I still have signed, and I'm not sure if it's forever. The game's not online anymore. I'm still not sure if it's okay if my NDA is gone. And so the thing is, and I agree with this person that was saying that if a game is being delayed like this multiple times, something bad is happening. Something really broken is there, like really, really broken, because it isn't just that they've said that they're going to delay this game. They said that they're going to delay this game, and even on release, there's going to be a 0-day patch, which, I mean, I thought it was like a hush-hush thing. The developers were supposed to pretend like they don't always do that. Like,
I'm pretty sure the 0-day patch, though, because the discs have already been sent out.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So maybe,
and with the extra, and since they pushed it back, more things, possibly more game-breaking things have been found. A possible game-breaking thing has been found, or they want to prevent the Witcher 3 cattle killing exploit from happening.
What is that? I've never even heard of that.
So Cyberpunk 2077 developer CD Projekt Red did a game series called The Witcher, based on a book in I can't remember, somewhere in Europe, and the author, well, that's a different story. But so the game's called Witcher 3. There was an exploit where, well, you can kill animals and creatures and such for drops, and it turns out that cows don't fight back. So you sit there, kill 2 cows, and then put your character on meditate, or, well, you set the character to wait, and then after X amount of time, the cows spawn back, and you just kill them and do it over and over and over and over again. After a while, they patched it where if you do it one too many, I don't know the number, but after you do it for some time, it spawns a savior for that I guess it would be a savior for that, and it's really hard to defeat if you're low level and weak.
Oh, okay. So there, you're wondering if there might be an exploit, something along those lines. Like, I would not delay a game for that. I would wait for that to be discovered and then deal with it later after the fact. The thing is, they've got they've got literature out there, they've got advertising out there that was advertising a specific release day, and so them reneging on that promise means a lot, because it's printed material that's out there that's promising this thing. So it's got to be something. Whatever is happening has to be. It's not just that they're teasing this, that they're playing, that they're working on hype, that they're fiddling with stuff in order to change the release day so that they have a competitive edge based on a comparison to other games or something like that. Like, something is just really wrong, like really, really wrong. And it's probably technical. There's probably technical problems, but at that point, like, who the heck knows? Maybe what happened is they pushed a bunch of critical developers too hard, and those developers cracked, or they quit, or something. And they were working on a very important 0-day stuff, and the next programmers who inherited that effort can't comprehend it because they're not nearly as good as those developers, and that just grinds everything to a halt. That's the kind of stuff that can happen, that if the developers aren't managing their people correctly, then it's like I've talked about. I can't even remember the name of the game now. It's got a strong A name. It's a terrible game. Oh, okay, well, good. I'm glad it's kind of purged from my memory now. Well, you've got the hockey stick problem where the deadline, you've got crunch time. And one of the problems is, as you approach that crunch time, you're kind of killing your developers, like by inches, pushing into that. And if Cyberpunk did that and they started losing people, which maybe that happened. I suspect something like that. I suspect the combination of manpower, brain power somehow, and major problems. Like, the problem they cited was that there are multiple platforms that they're releasing on. And Minion, you were saying last show that it's fairly straightforward to do the Windows, then Xbox, whatever the heck the next generation is, to do kind of the quote unquote port. That's straightforward. But they're doing that, and
well, it should be easy. I don't know much about how the software works, but that's how it was touted for a while.
Yeah, I mean, that's the entire point. But I think nobody really knows for realsies how easy things are, because now in reality we have games that are coming out and then stressing that mechanic. So it may well be that this game isn't properly working on some of the platforms because there are these fundamental issues with, I mean, who knows? Maybe they're pushing extra super advanced new graphics technologies, and they just learned that things don't work the way they expected with the actual hardware in the real world that they now have access to. Like, odd things happen. So a lot of people, like, I can't be hyped anymore. I don't, something happened to me a while ago where I just stopped. Like, I'm kind of dead inside for a lot of games. I'm going to quote myself. Hang on one second. I'm quoting myself on Discord. And so I was talking with guildmates about the problem of hype with games, because specifically the expansion for World of Warcraft is supposed to be coming up, and it's basically a new game. So it's important to a lot of people because the game is really old, right? So people have a legacy of playing it, which makes it a little bit more important. And so I was saying that, to quote me, I want to be hyped, but not knowing means not anticipating, because they don't even have an estimation for a release day. They just gave up. They're like, well, it's going to be the end of this year. I'm like, oh, okay. The expansion is going to be the end of this year, but there's additional content that's supposed to be coming that people are already hyped for. I want to take the day off. I want to take the week off. I might not do this podcast. Now I don't know anything about anything. So I'm kind of like, I just don't care. And it's the same thing with all these other games where I'm like, I would like to care. I would actually like to save the money and set it aside. Because come on, guys, this is Christmas. Money is hard to come by right now. And some of these things are the gift that one gives to oneself for Christmas. And so all these games are kind of competing. So like it's like $120 for World of Warcraft that I'm going to have to sink into it, plus monthly subscriptions, right? So that's how much money I've got to throw at just that one video game. And what am I going to do with Cyberpunk? I'm going to do what, $70, however much it costs. And then I can't even split my time. Like Minnie, you and I were thinking of like streaming. And I can make myself available for that. Like I have to rearrange this room, and then I'll get I just don't know where I'm going to put. You know how hard it is to level out a camera? I have a little level bubble on it, but I have to put it on a stand in front of me and fit my monitor on my desk and all. Yeah, so I have to move stuff around. Then I can be on camera. Then
how would you do your level then?
Okay, so what I would do, so I've got I've got both desktop clamps with arms, like I've got my microphone on one, and I can do the exact same thing. I've got spares. I can do the exact same thing, just put the webcam on it. But what I would have to do is that I would have to I'm going to get a new microphone in, which I'll talk about in segment 3. But I can take this ball joint, and what that does is I can screw it on, and then it gives me an incredible range of motion for the webcam. And the webcam itself has a range of motion as well. It has like 2 joints in it that I can move around. So I actually have the ability to tilt it and wiggle it in all kinds of ways. So my intention is to bring it up to like traditionally it sits on top of a monitor. So I might just peek it behind my monitor. That's what I have now. It's just wall mounted now. It's like perfectly placed, just in time for me to rearrange this room. I'll probably leave it there, get a 720p camera, put a clamp on it, and use that. Because if I'm like a postage size thing in the corner of a stream, I don't have to have a 1080p camera. And that way this is on my wall, and I can actually elevate it, and I can stand here. So if we were to do a podcasty thing, I could just stand in front of this camera or switch and sit down and stream. So I can actually have multiple cameras set up. It's easy enough for me. And I know how to do scene switching in OBS and all this kind of, I kind of unintentionally plan ahead. And the way this room is going to be set up will bring everything out of the way from when I'm standing in front of the camera. So I can get hyped for doing that, because that's kind of stuff I can set up and be interested in. And so I can sit down and stream for the game, which is perfectly fine for me. And I mean, we can put the show while I'm playing. And I don't know what you're good for. We can switch between me streaming with me in there, and then you streaming with you in there for your game, something like that. Because I'm sure they're going to be boring moments, and one of us is going to be boring. We'll switch to the other person's gameplay. That might be an interesting thing. That might keep the interest up. So you enter into a cutscene, we switch over to you so people can watch that. Something interesting happens for me, we switch. But if I'm just kill grinding or something dumb, then whatever, switch to you. That might be a cool thing to do. And then we continue our weird conversations. So, I mean, there's lots of cool stuff that we can do. We can figure that out, and we can gate it through. We should have at least one other voice chat, video chat, desktop sharing, or game streaming tool working and run some tests before all this stuff hits, before all this stuff releases, and run a couple of practice podcasts. And that would give us backups. I don't like the idea of relying on Discord because obviously it's been having problems. Now we don't know why. It's not our fault. And I don't think anybody else in here's. I don't think anybody else using this net connection, unless they're war driving and using our wireless, jacking into our wireless from outside our place. I don't think anybody's doing anything particularly aggressive. So our synchronization stuff is the most aggressive bandwidth eater that we have. And it's really smart and really gentle and possibly slightly unreliable. I'm still running tests. It's still worrisome. At any rate. Why don't we, this is a pretty interesting break. Why don't we take a break right now? It'll be a little bit longer and come back to segment 3. We can talk about more administrivia stuff, maybe some random stuff. And so I'll see you guys soon. Well, I'm back. Are you back, Minion? I do not hear you. Everything okay?
It's not paying attention to the last minutes.
That's why I listened to the music, actually. That's why I insisted on music that is listenable. Well, hello, everybody.
And here we are.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Lucid Indifference. We are back for segment 3. I'm so tempted to talk about Joe Rogan. I want to pay closer attention to other podcasts. And one of the traps that people have is you enter into a market, you're either inspired by people who are already there, or you use them as models to mimic, and in order to chase some, you're always in somebody else's shadow, but you're kind of like picking up crumbs, or maybe you see yourself as having some value that they're not addressing, but you can still get inspiration from or learn from the mistakes of something else. And so when I think about doing better for a podcast, I think about successes that are out there. I think the Joe Rogan show is still the most popular, and there's a few others that are up there, some of which are a little less controversial. I do consider him to be controversial. And so like paying attention to his stuff. I've watched, I think his most recent episode, which I'm not going to talk about, I think it's the only one that I've seen entirely from end to end. And it's strange because I've talked about this before. As soon as you get a new set of skills, you experience life a little differently. And so I've got a new set of physical audio engineering skills, quote unquote skills, right? Because I'm not good or anything, but I understand certain basics. And I've talked about this before with that one singer online. I've seen her videos and I now understand the room. It's weird because I'm listening to this podcast, which has nothing in it of any interest to me. So I'm like, shrug, but he's got a new studio, as I understand, because they were talking about that. And I'm looking at the room and I'm understanding the shape of the room and the stuff that's up on the walls and the layout of things. I'm trying to figure out the brand of headphones, and I actually recognize the microphones. Like that's like, wow, that's really cool. I know how to buy that on Amazon. And then I'm looking at the boom arms and some weird adapter on it. I'm really excited. And because it's got 3 angles for 3 separate cameras for the different, because there was one side guest who I didn't recognize, and the main dude and the main guest, right? So it's got a few different camera angles, and I'll get to see the equipment from different angles, and they've got matching equipment as part of the visuals of the show. And it's weird because like the shape of the room is it's long, but it's got a slope there's a seam around the middle of the walls, and the top part of the wall is actually sloped up in towards the room. And that does certain things to the acoustics of the room. So I'm thinking, wow, I wonder if they did that on purpose, because you can do some really interesting stuff behind the room there that really does treat audio differently, specifically low end audio, bass audio. Maybe they're doing something with that. I wonder if they did that on purpose, or maybe it's just because of the space that they're in. This is like that shape. That's like the kind of wacky shape in like an attic that's been converted into a bedroom, right? Because you've got the sloped roof. So I don't know. So I'm thinking if it's not like that, then they did that on purpose. I wonder what's happening. But what really, I mean, I know I'm like fanboying over the strangest stuff, but there's something called mic handling, and different microphones have this problem in different ways. So I'm going to do it here. So I apologize. Like you might have heard a little rumble. This is just me touching and very slightly moving a microphone. So that is mic handling. And certain microphones, that was a phone that just fell down. I'm sorry. There are certain microphones that handle that concept, that problem, a little differently than others. And it's not necessarily a price thing where you just get a really expensive microphone and that problem goes away. It's just different. And the thing is, you'll see musicians on stages, and they are tilting the mic stand, and they're holding the microphone and they're moving it around. And nobody in the audience will ever hear anything with that. Like, so there's no mic handling. The thing is, with the microphone I have, that is a major, major issue. Like, I can't touch anything. I can't touch the microphone. I can't touch the arm. I've demonstrated this with a quite high quality shock mount. It does absolutely nothing at all. And I can't type and tap the desk and all this kind of stuff. But on that podcast, which I was watching, it is also meant to be an audio experience, like podcasts are audio, right? But I'm watching it and looking at all their equipment, and they're touching the microphone. I'm like, how do they do that? Like, what are they doing to make the mic handling just not be there? This is just weird. And because I think it actually goes out live too. I'm not sure. Now, after the fact, maybe there's some modification that can be done. But honestly, man, there's really nothing you can do when there are those little bumps and stuff in the middle of people talking. Because at one point, somebody actually like half backhands the microphone by accident while in the middle of talking. There was nothing. It was weird. It was so weird. So obviously there's something there to learn. And so, I mean, there's a value in paying attention no matter the content of what other people are doing. There is one other podcast that I don't even remember. Sam Harris. He's I don't know if he's an actual philosopher or what's going on, but apparently he's like a chill dude that meditates for 5 minutes every day, and it shows. It shows with his personality. And so I'm wondering if maybe I should go watch his really old stuff and just see what it's like and listen to things and get some experience with, because I get the impression that the pacing of the way he speaks is something that I could probably mimic / do if I learned to chill out. And that would mean if I had topics which were fairly consistent. I'm just making stuff up as I go. Minion, you could feed me with all kinds of topics if you wanted to. I could probably give you like a topic generator. Wow, I'm gonna give you a link in Discord and just have you like look at it while I try to not clickety clack so hard. I'm gonna remove this from post anyway.
Oh, right, it doesn't make the sound anymore.
Oh, sorry about that. Man, I keep pressing push to talk when I mean to talk. Like, yeah, it's such habit from playing video games. You always have to have push to talk. So sorry, I sent Minion a link to one of these wacky.
Oh, this is one of those, this is essentially a small talk conversation.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like, well, that's kind of dumb. That's not exactly what's useful. And the thing is, what most people do, and this is why if you go out, man, the new YouTube, right? I got into YouTube when people had something to say, there was meat, right? Even if a lot of people were talking about the same thing with their spin, their perspective, there was always meat. There was an actual topic. nowadays what people are doing is they're feeding off of like mainstream news or events, and they're like they're adding noise, or they're riffing off of and just presenting. So they're taking the exact same content as somebody else, and they're presenting it with their style. There's nothing wrong with that. So there's this audio project called LibriVox, and I'll link to it. If you are new with speaking and want to get into, and maybe want to have your hand held a little bit, get some good advice, some instructions, and learn to do speaking and record it and actually contribute something to mankind. Like the LibriVox project takes public domain books or poetry or short stories or whatever, and asks the public to speak them. And they've got this idea called the choice of voice. And what that means is if there's something and multiple people are interested in speaking it, then let them. And then a listener can go and listen to at least a little bit of each of these people, find the one voice that they really like, that they can tolerate, whatever, and just listen to that. So you could have multiple people that all speak the exact same chapter. Now, unfortunately, things get a little weird because you get multiple people collaborating on different chapters for the same book just to get it done. And you have to remember, it isn't just that these are amateurs. There are standards, and there are quality things, and things are listened to and all this kind of stuff. This is why I would recommend it for somebody who's very new. And that's good practice. And it does give back. Okay, it does give back. I lost my train of thought. Wow, I really did lose my train of thought. Anyhow, how about that local sports ball team? Wow. Okay, so I was talking about like mainstream news and people riffing off of that. So now the contents of YouTube are kind of useless, but what they're doing, what say the other people who are kind of in my position, like me, the human being, they're in the same position. But what those people are doing is they are using mainstream news and events out there in the world. The recent drama, for example, they're using that stuff as their topic generator, and then taking everything that everybody else talks about, and just mashing it up, or they're doing the old. I mean, they're taking the ideas, but sometimes they are taking the content, and they're fair use modifying it, and they're giving it back. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the equivalent of a choice of voice. So you may not like that official news presenter, so it would take maybe an extra hour or two or whatever the heck, but you might have some amateur presenter who's more in tune with the way you listen, and that person will steal the content, essentially, like take actual journalism and then just be a new presenter, which, I mean, it's kind of like piracy, isn't it? Because you have an actual journalist, an actual body there, right? An actual industry surrounding that. And all that costs money. And then you have some person after the fact just like taking the script and reading it themselves. Like, I really hate the idea of people pulling up a news article and just reading it off. Like, look, guys, that's not useful. They're not fair use modifying it enough for me to feel like it's an ethical thing to do. But at the very least, that's choice of voice, but that's not actually interesting. It's not useful because it's not new. It's not anything. It's not the old YouTube where people didn't care about the news. There was like drama stuff, but nobody cared about that. It was all about deep, interesting discussions about that stuff and cat videos. And you didn't have these like terrible ASMR channels and makeup and unboxing. I bumped into another, and he has a separate channel just for unboxing the stuff that he goes to his other channel that he does major reviews on, that And his intro video is just him touring his place and showing off all the ludicrously expensive stuff he has. Like, oh wow, thanks, dude. No, don't like it. Don't like him. Anyhow. So the problem of being prompted to talk about stuff is I'm perfectly capable of saying anything about anything for forever because it's been this many episodes. It's been, I think it's 30. This is the 30th officially, but there's another 7. A second one should be going up soon. I don't know if you've already queued it up. Some of the records from back then are a little bit funny, but I mean, I'm putting up as much as we can as I'm listening to it. So, and again, I've said this before, our previous stuff before episode 1 was us trying to figure out what this means, what this is, how this would look or sound, what the topics would be. And I would just talk like normal. Like how I'm talking now is not necessarily how it would talk. This is not coffee shop talk. This is cleaned up more. This is not bar talk. This is cleaned up a lot more. So I'm not going to talk about politics because who cares about Canadian politics? Not Canadians. And I'm not American. So what do I care? You want me to complain about NAFTA? NAFTA going away and being replaced by something else? I guess no, I just don't care. It's not worth it. So, oh man, here's my train of thought. So there are topics in that old stuff that include that side of things that may or may not be appropriate for re-release now. So that's one of the things that's fascinating me, is going back to some of that old stuff. It is only months old, but it is a very different person. My past self in that context is very different. And so edgy, to say the least. The privacy of your own home kind of thing. Edginess is crazy. Anyway. I do have other stuff to talk about. So in editing my old shows, I have been tortured by weird breathing, a creaking chair, pen clicking, just absolutely awful audio, like omnidirectional microphone settings and mic handling, desk handling. I did use a desk clamp, but it was on a table that we were sitting at. And you could hear traffic outside, and the room was terrible, and there was a kitchen, and I'm still trying to like noise remove people doing dishes. So it's actually stressing my skills out, quote unquote skills out. But it's strange because the engineering tricks that I'm doing, they're working really great. Now, the one thing that I'm really bothered by the idea is so Minion, you listen to stuff still all the time, right?
So, like music or other people talking?
Like podcasty, talky type stuff, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So when you're listening, between sentences, is there dead air, or do you hear like a background sound of some kind? Do you remember that?
When I'm listening to people?
Mm-hmm. Is there a room sound that continues, that persists between sentences?
No, all you do is generally just hear the voice.
So
but that's normally a curated or a room somewhat prepped.
Right. Okay. So you're not listening to people live, you're listening to things kind of post-produced after the fact, right?
One is, one isn't.
Okay, so for the live one, you can probably hear more of the room. It depends on their settings and their equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the one that's prepared, because one of the things I do, so the reason I bring this up is one of the things I do is during my editing process, there's a trick called noise gating. And what noise gating is it is the ability to reduce the volume of stuff. It's like adding insult to injury. It's beating a dead horse. It's kicking you when you're down. If a volume is too low, so there's a threshold. If it's too low, the noise gating will actually reduce it more. So it's too low, it reduces it more. And so it actually pushes stuff down a cliff. Now I have the option of taking audio that is between sentences, knowing that it's between sentences because I add magic. And so with magic, and I can actually just make them dead and make it completely dead air. And I can do that with special magic, and it always bothers me because when I'm listening to it, when I'm doing my own editing, there's this background sound that happens. I do noise removal, right? And that makes all the stuff between sentences nice and quiet. And then I can actually make it silent. And it always worries me that maybe people that have a really good ear find that jarring, find just the absence of everything to be kind of odd. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's just my ears. So you haven't noticed anything between sentences. So hopefully, I mean, you have no taste, and I know that you don't have ears. So maybe I shouldn't have brought that up.
I just don't care.
Maybe. So I
have taste. I just don't care.
I'm trying to think of a certain flavor of sound, and I can do that with voices now. I'm doing it fairly well. It seems to apply with yours as long as I can get you to actually talk like a person. Like your mic's in front of your face, but you still can't talk loud enough for it to register you properly. So I have one audio massaging macro in. So on Audacity, you have a chain of different effects that you can put together into what's called a macro. And I'm using the exact same one for Minion versus myself. And it works just fine. The equalizer, maybe that needs to be fiddled with, but I don't know what I'm doing for that. So I'm using a Manly Man equalizer, and that seems to work. But I still think, like, I know it's a con. Okay, so I know it's a con when somebody says, "Hey, you can give me $50 and I'll draw a line for you," which is all an equalizer is. Like, I know there's a con happening there, but I still kind of want to do it because I'm getting an actual professional engineer for realsies to do this based on my unique voice. And so I might do that with the new microphone that I'm coming in, that I have coming in. And I mean, it's coming in like next week or so. I'm trying to get hyped with at least something in my life. So it's that. And this microphone is from a company called Rode. It is a Rode NT1. Now, I don't know if I can recommend that or not, but it's a work of art. And that's one of the things that sold me is, number one, it's a work of art. Number two, it comes really complete. And number three, it's Australian. And so it's not like one of these, it might be a great quality mic, but it's not some thing from that place, right? It's not where everything gets made. It's a bunch of Aussies making some really high quality stuff. And listening to all these audio reviews, all these microphone reviews, I came to the conclusion that I care about one thing when it comes to microphones. I do not care about its live performance, which might bite me for doing live streaming, but I know some magic that's going to force me to apply magic that very few people know to do. Very few streamers, if any, will actually do. They'll just use a certain kind of microphone and then deal with it. I'm going to use a certain kind of microphone. I'm not going to deal with it in that sense. I am going to actually use it and process it in a certain way to make it sound the way I want. So one of the things that I chose this microphone for, other than it comes in a kit and it's gorgeous, is it is flat. And I've talked about flatness being extremely important for headphones. So if you want to listen to an authentic reproduction of what you're hearing, you don't pipe it through an equalizer and then or headphones that have like the bass turned up or have quote unquote brighter audio or lyrics or whatever. None of that mess. It's just it's designed to be as authentic as possible. And it's not inexpensive. You can get expensive for everything, of course, but headphones that are sold with that in mind are not extra expensive or anything like that. Yeah, but there are comfort issues and all this kind of stuff. That always adds to the price. And there's another version for microphones. And this has major controversy. And a lot of people they really hate this idea. The idea of having a microphone be authentic. It sounds like a weird thing to say. So they want a microphone that gives a certain kind of quality to their voice. So it's got to have these EQ curves where it lifts a certain range in the mids, and it raises the treble up, and it makes the voice brighter, and people talk about these slopes. And so if you go and look at microphones, they're sold with this little graph, and it makes no sense to most people, but you learn about it, and it really, really does matter a lot. And this microphone, so the Rode NT1, which I will forever from now on call the Rodent 1, has a curve that it drops off at the base end of things because nobody cares, but because that's traffic. That's not voices, that's traffic. So it slopes that down just a little. And then it's flat. It's literally totally flat. Like the graph is flat, but in reality, maybe it wobbles around a tiny bit and it's just smooth in the graph because they're being a little dishonest. Who knows? I'm not going to try to do some science and test it. And then at the far edges of the right-hand side, it picks up just gently. And that's probably because people, that's a voice. That's a certain end of the voice, and it picks it up a little bit, which I disagree with, but it's very gentle. And I know how to EQ that out really easily. So I can actually make my voice flat. But it's not that I want to make my voice flat. I don't. It's that I have a very predictable baseline with this microphone from which I can modify it with an equalizer in exactly the way I want without having to fight with it to pull it from wherever it's trying to be smart. So I have to dumb it down, and then I have to adjust it the way I want. I don't want to have to do that somehow in software, in post, and I really don't want to have to figure out how to do that live. Because if I have equipment between the microphone and what's called the USB interface, so basically between the microphone and the computer, I can put hardware there and I can fiddle with stuff. A microphone that is too weird, you can't fiddle with it very easily on the way to your computer. A lot of stuff gets really hard. So I don't have to do that with this microphone. And what's nice about this microphone is so the one I got is I don't know, I think it's still available. I'll link to it. It's the microphone, and normally it's just a microphone that's sold. It's nothing. This is the microphone. It's an interface as well. It's an interface branded by the same company. So it's made to work with this microphone, this exact model of this microphone, which matters a lot to a beginner. And it's made to be really low noise. So it's got quality electricity. You can think of it that way. Okay. And magic. Okay. And then the microphone has a shock mount, which is nice because shock mounts are a little expensive. And which really sold me. So it's got a pop filter. So it's not one of these clown noses which is just for wind. It's for outside, but people use them anyway for some reason. A proper pop filter it's usually like this metal rounded ring with a pantyhose stretched out. Maybe it's 2 layers if it's good. This microphone, this kit, it has that, but 2 things. Number 1 is it's a beautiful thin rectangular shape that just fits right over it well. Okay, it's still out and it's still a flat surface. It's 2 layers and it's metal. Okay, and it fits into the shock mount directly. So the problem with streamers and with people that want to show their face for whatever reason, right? You've got this clamp on your arm, this tentacle, the metal, the Doc Ock tentacle reaching out with this gigantic circle, and that's right in your face. It's just terrible. And so this is it's not perfect, but it's a little bit smaller, a lot nicer, and fits right in. It looks fantastic. So I could actually have that clipping my mouth, for example, or I can have that just off the side and it could be visible on frame and it looks fantastic. the other selling point of this thing, and most people wouldn't see this by looking at it. And thankfully I saw reviews and I saw the thing, and I learned about new technology essentially. I know about shock mounts. I've played with them. I've got a couple. I've used one of them well enough. I know they're garbage. Okay. So I know that. So it's a combination of my mic being too handily sensitive and the shock mount. Maybe it's not as good as I thought it was. Maybe I got fleeced. And I know that it wasn't quite appropriate for the type of microphone I had and all this stuff, but the magic was not there. But I know the magic is going to be there if it's being sold by the manufacturer in a kit. But what's interesting about this particular microphone is it is not a typical shock mount. It is so much not a typical shock mount that I have never seen it with another microphone. It is a totally different technology of shock mount that suspends it in much the same way, but with different material, with a different technique. And that shock mount, I went looking for it to see if I could buy it separately, because like I've said in the last episode, in 29, I talked about purchasing a kit of stuff. In that case, I was talking about a ring light and a kit, and you look at all the different parts and you're like, oh, that stand costs this costs that. And you can understand the value of all the components a lot better. They won't sell you on that almost ever. But so you can help sell yourself with it and understand the value of it for its parts. And sometimes you want to buy a kit because it's got all these parts that you want. Plus it has a light, right? Plus whatever. In this particular case, I'm looking at this shock mount. This shock mount is no joke, more than $100 just for that shock mount. And I can't get that pop screen anywhere, even if I wanted to. And that interface is unique to this kit. And there's a lot of selling points there. So because I could buy that microphone alone, but because I'm pulling everything into this kit, I'm getting a lot of stuff that is really special and unique. It isn't just that I'm getting that shock mount and that it's great and all. It's actually branded by this company, and it fits the color scheme and everything. So it all works together. It's all black, which I guess that's the thing, matte black, so it doesn't stand out too much. I was looking at something that was shiny silver. I still I don't know. There's a limited edition on all that. I think that's but the flat EQ, man, did that sell me. Anyhow, this is an Australian company. And so there is Australianness attached. And one of the things that you get is incredibly high quality service from them. And so I went looking at their website, because one of the things I do with the products I own is I want to go to the manufacturer and learn more about the product as well. I did that after I bought this, but I still want to go and check. You check through their marketing material. Maybe you get user guides. It turns out I got firmware updating stuff for the interface, which I didn't think was the thing, but that's awesome. And a bunch of other things. And one of the things they were offering is registering your hardware, which is something that not enough people think about. And you really, really should, especially for something like a hard drive. Always buy Western Digital. And you can register with the manufacturer if there's a problem, you can send it back really easily. So for Western Digital, you can flip your hard drive over or use software to get the serial number out of it, and you can register that particular device. And as a side benefit, if you do that and your stuff ever gets stolen, you've actually got evidence and registration of ownership stored with third party and stuff like this. It can be quite useful. And so I was doing that with Rode. And I went to them and they're like, hey, register your thing. We give you an extended warranty. I'm looking at the extended warranty. Not joking, 10 years. I was worried about buying this on the wrong card because I get extended warranty on one card but not the other. But I'm like, wait a second. The manufacturer's like, there's this warranty on this and this warranty on that. And I have to register my items separately. And so I got a hold of the manufacturer. I love being able to do that. And I got a hold of the manufacturer. I'm like, hey, I'm getting this kit here. And I point at Amazon. It's from their official store. So it's not some weird third-party thing. So it's their official Amazon store selling this kit. It just doesn't happen to be, there's a different kit that's available for warranty, but not this. So I asked them, hey, what about this one that I have? And they're like, no, you can just register this here like that and this here like that. And I'm like, well, because that didn't cover, I know it sounds dumb, but I wanted to know the warranty on the shock mount and the pop filter. Like, okay, what happens if I drop the screen and it dents a little bit? Can I like get away with sending that back? Like, because, maybe that might matter if I'm live streaming with this nice screen and people will only see the back of it because they see the microphone. And the screen is between me and the microphone. It's on my side of things. It's not on the camera side of things. But what if there's a little nick? What if like some of the color rubs off somehow? What if, whatever, right? Can I send it back? And because I know the shock mount costs a lot of money. What happens if it dries up, it cracks, it wears out, it breaks? Like something not user error? Well, so I got a hold of him a second time. I'm like, oh, the advantage of being a writer. I'm like, so I kind of gently inquire about warrantying for the other things. Like, are they covered under these other things? Like, and they get back to me like, those will also be covered under the warranty for, I think it's the microphone itself. So I'm like, oh yes, this is awesome. Now, a microphone, I've talked about the idea of buy it for life. Right? I've talked about that. And the most obvious thing is for clothing, but there's a lot of other stuff that you can get that has an extended shelf life that you can purchase, that you can buy in bulk. And it's a great way to save money if you buy a lot of stuff in bulk. And so in a sense, you can purchase a product and you can choose to pay more for it and know that you suffer a little bit because of that. Don't eat out for a while. Don't eat your luxury food. Don't do other stuff for a little bit. Suffer, but know that you pick up some product that is useful, and that might actually make money. Like buying a new microphone might make you money if you get into voiceover work or acting or something like that, which is getting to be more popular these days. So, and I'm interested in that. That's something I'm going to be investigating in the next probably couple of weeks. And in this particular case, there's a concept in voiceover people that talks about buying equipment for life, quote unquote. Now, 10 years is not for life, but boy, is that a long time. And I'm betting you that in the next 5 years, I might actually earn money to replace the microphone, because that is a very obvious direct investment, isn't it? It's actually not the most important investment. Room treatment is, or hiring a vocal coach. Hiring a vocal coach so I can get rid of that weird tongue sound, that me chewing on certain words, the technique. That's more important. That and room are more important. And maybe like social media skills or helper or something like that. Like hiring somebody to train minion better. Like I use a Cossack whip, but maybe there's some better technique that I don't know about. So, I mean, that's worth something. And that's probably something I will achieve in the next 5 years, right? The quote unquote 5-year plan. And so having spent more on this, more than that you can get a discount buying something a little, no name brand or whatever the heck, but buying more gave me a great warranty. Like that was a fantastic thing to learn. So yeah, looking for manufacturer warranty information before you buy something, I think I'm going to add that to my recommended stuff. You look at reviews and you listen to people that talk about their warranty process, because some people will say, oh, the warranty, it doesn't apply in Canada. So I'm Canadian. So that's a really big deal. So why buy a thing if I can't get a manufacturer warranty that applies to me? And some places are just weird like that. Now you can purchase a lot. Amazon in particular will offer, which is funny for this microphone. I'm glad I declined it. They will offer you third-party warrantying service, which I've actually dealt with. I gently nudged them, and they kind of cleaned up some of their act to serve Canadians better, which is nice. And I will take credit for that. Anyhow, you can do that for a lot of products, and so they'll be able to help you, but some manufacturers can't. And a lot of places you might get a deal from like Joe's Electronics or whatever the heck. And the problem is that is not the manufacturer. So maybe the manufacturer won't recognize your purchase properly, because maybe they will begin the warranty process from Joe buying it, not from you, Joe, not from you buying it. So your warranty may be short, or it may not apply, or weird. So you read comments, you learn about these experiences from people who are local to you, hopefully, and don't buy those things. Pay more to get something else, even if you have to switch brands. So I think Rode as a brand, I can recommend. I'm just assuming that the microphone is any good. I mean, the people that you listen to microphone reviews, and those are people who are trained speakers or who are too annoying to listen to, because they're like the unboxer types, and they're just obnoxious. They have the personality, which they're excited, so they're unlistenable. Or you get people who are professionals who are testing this stuff out. So it's kind of hard to know if it suits you, right? A lot of things are like that. So for microphones, I don't know. There's one other brand from Shure. It's a very simple microphone that I would recommend. I can't remember the model offhand. I'll definitely link it. But as I get into the audio stuff, segment 3 will be more and more about me talking about things until I've gone through enough that this will be practice for me making a script and actually doing, like, I will on my set of stuff do a very, very long, like multi-hour thing talking about absolutely everything that I've gone through as a way of just handing everything that I know on a tray, and everything that I learned is right for me. It's not right for everybody, right? And maybe I'm going to be wrong sometimes, but you know what? Probably not, because I'm really good at learning stuff, and I try to learn from the mistakes of other people. And like I said last show, I pit professionals against one another. I figure out where they agree. That's what I do. And where they don't agree, I'll talk about why I made certain choices, and why I hold certain opinions, because I like trust that expert over that expert. But there's not so many circumstances where that matters, because where experts disagree lies this weird chasm of strange exceptions for professionals. That's not me. That's never going to be me. That's never going to be Minion, ever, ever, ever. What else is there to talk about? So we got like 7 minutes left. The other thing, I value backups. I'm an archivist. I really think that everybody should have like 2 or 3 backups of everything they've ever done. And if you do something like social media, it does not exist, and you do not exist until you have the ability to both download it, keep it, back it up into a second place, and repost it someplace else. Because it doesn't matter if you have a copy of all of your YouTube descriptions, for example. If you can't copy paste them back up somewhere, like if your channel gets nuked for some misunderstanding, and you make a new and you are allowed to start a new channel, right? Don't break the rules. How do you copy paste? Maybe you have copies of your videos. Well, how do you copy paste your descriptions? There's all these problems. Okay, so I think about all that stuff. And the thing that I've been thinking about most recently is communicating over the internet and making backups. Now, one of them is extending your hard drive by reaching through the internet and having a cloud service with space, and how that works, and making backups, having them manage backups, which isn't just that they have a copy of that stuff. Like they have a copy of data that is associated to you, but they don't know what it is. Like that's important, as well as maybe following certain medical or governmental rules on how data is managed for security reasons, which I pay attention to. But they also keep backups for themselves, so they have multiple hard drives for your stuff, so to speak, right? So I've gone through a bunch of services and I've talked to their technical support and their sales and stuff like that. And I've looked at things and I've judged things. I think I'm going to settle on a company called, I can't remember the company name, but the website is sync.com. And the reason I recommend them is they are dead easy. Now, just what happens is your Explorer window, this is an Internet Explorer, this is your File Explorer. So this is explorer.exe. So if you press Windows E, that's what comes up. Your File Explorer, you can make a special folder, and in that special folder, you just put files there. And those files, you can keep using them. They get automatically put up into backups automatically, and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to press any buttons. You don't have some stupid bad interface GUI, some other program. You never have to worry about that stuff. It's just done, and you interact with it like every other file you have. So I can put the show up in a special folder, and it will automatically upload things as I'm working on them. Now, the other magic is, because it's called sync.com, it does synchronization, which means I can set that up on a second computer and have it automatically download it. And it can, again, anywhere in the world where you have internet, right? And I can have multiple computers that do that, all synchronized together. That means I can also go to that other site, that other computer, my desktop to my laptop, right? And I can modify the same content in the same folder, and it gets automatically distributed to everybody else. Now, that is important if you are doing something for a living on a computer. You want to be able to service your employer without having any computer problems get in the way. And one of the things that you need to do is have backups, not just backups of your data in the sense that you have a copy on another hard drive, but you need to have the ability to, like, my desktop blew up. Okay, just walk over to your laptop, open it up. It's an underpowered computer, something else, but it's your old one. It's 5 years old, whatever, but it still works. It's just a little slow, and everything is already there. It's already been synchronized live while you were working. And just go, fire it up, and away you go. And while your main computer is being sent off to warranty, you've got this other computer. Now, you might want to be real smart and have a second backup so that when something is off in warranty, you still have an alternate computer. But not all of us are in a position to get like a second and a third laptop, right? Your main one is super duper, and you've got a backup one that's a little bit older, and you've got a backup one, right? Not many people can just have like, that's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? But with sync.com, this show is not sponsored by sync.com, but with sync.com, you can actually have that folder. And that could be like Audacity, your working Audacity project as you're going, because it saves as you're talking, which I've always worried about that, but it saves as you go. You could have that automatically synchronized to multiple computers, and it can recover from crashes and from your computer dying and stuff like that. So that's wonderful to hear. And that is, again, inspiration from Mike Delgadio, who I'm really happy that he explained that and the ability to pull that off live, because sometimes you're working, you have to deliver that day. And so you can't afford to like reinstall Windows or get a new hard drive or have something like express shipping isn't fast enough when you've got people relying on you, especially when you have, it's not just that employer, but it's their employees or your coworkers or something like this that are all relying on that stuff. So have physical backups of your hardware, get quality, really think about your warranties, choose your manufacturer correctly, choose your brands well, fall in love with a brand, develop that relationship, figure out if you can contact them, what it's like. Do they speak English? This kind of stuff. Anyhow, we're done. I'm happy. This has been 2020-10-28. This is episode 30. Hopefully, we're going to get episode 29 up tomorrow. That's our plan for doing this kind of stuff. But maybe what we should do is just have like the rest of our clips, Minion put the rest of our clips and stuff up tomorrow, and then schedule the actual show for the day after. My goal is to make sure that I stay way up on time now that everything is wonderful to do. These headphones are pretty easy to listen through, so it's working out pretty well. And so I can have our live listeners excited for looking at a taped recording of much the same with better audio quality for the next couple of days, something like this. So anyhow, this has been Lucid Indifference. That's lucidindifference.com. Check out our website, look at the clips playlist, and if you like our stuff, look at our full playlist. This is 30 episodes so far with some extras. So go check us out. I'll see you guys in a few days.